The child labor auction in Galveston was ending when rancher William Harrison saw her, a thin girl of 14 with eyes that held secrets darker than the Texas night. He paid $50, not knowing this broken child would become the key to saving his dying ranch, his empty marriage, and his own troubled soul. William Harrison stood at the back of the crowded warehouse, his weathered hands gripping his hat as he watched children being sold like cattle. The year 1887 had been harsh on Texas, and desperate families were making desperate choices. At 42, William owned one of the largest cattle ranches in Brazos County, but success felt empty when shared with no one. His wife Catherine had been trying to bear children for 15 years, and each failed attempt had carved deeper lines into both their faces. The auctioneer's voice cut through his thoughts. Next we have a girl, age 14, healthy and strong. Been working in the cotton fields since she was 8. William looked up to see a thin girl being pushed onto the makeshift platform. Her brown hair hung in tangles around a gaunt face, her dress little more than patched rags. But it was her eyes that caught him. They weren't the vacant stare he'd seen in other children. These eyes burned with fierce intelligence, darting around the room as if calculating every exit, every face, every possibility. Bidding starts at $20, the auctioneer called. $25, came a voice from Thomas Briggs, who owned a small farm north of town. $30, came another voice. William found himself stepping forward. $50. The warehouse fell silent. No one was fool enough to bid against William Harrison when he'd made up his mind. Sold to Mr. Harrison for $50. As William approached, he caught the girl's eye. Instead of gratitude or fear, he saw something that made him pause, pity. This child was looking at him with pity. The auctioneer handed him papers. Name's Emma Carter. Parents died of fever last winter. You got yourself a good worker there, Mr. Harrison. Miss Carter, William said, touching his hat brim. I'm William Harrison. You'll be coming to work on my ranch. She studied his face before speaking, her voice soft but clear. What kind of work? General help around the house and grounds. My wife Catherine will explain your duties. And if I don't want to come? The question surprised him. You have a choice. But winter's coming, and Galveston streets ain't kind to young folks alone. Emma looked around at the remaining children, at the men counting coins. When she looked back at William, something had shifted. I reckon I'll come with you then, Mr. Harrison. The ride to the Harrison ranch took most of the day. Emma sat beside William on the bench seat, watching everything, how he handled the horses, the landmarks, the sun's position. She was memorizing the route. You planning to run off? He asked after several hours. Depends, she replied. On what? On whether you bought me to work or for other reasons. The steel in her voice made William's stomach clench. He pulled the wagon to a halt. Miss Carter, you're coming to my ranch for honest work, cooking, cleaning, tending animals. Nothing more. Any man who would harm a child deserves to be strung up. She studied his face with those unnervingly mature eyes. Finally, she nodded. All right then. As the sun set, they crested a hill and Emma saw the Harrison ranch sprawling across the valley like a small town. The main house was sturdy timber with a wraparound porch, a large barn, and outbuildings scattered around the property. It's bigger than I expected, Emma said softly. Took me 20 years to build it up, William replied with quiet pride. Course, it'll all belong to strangers when I'm gone, seeing as Catherine and I haven't been blessed with children. Something flickered across Emma's face, but she said nothing. A woman emerged onto the porch as they arrived. Catherine Harrison was still handsome at 38, with blonde hair lightly touched with grey, but there was tightness around her eyes suggesting years of disappointment. William, you're later than expected. Had business in town, he replied, helping Emma down. Catherine, this is Emma Carter. She'll be helping around the house. Catherine's eyes widened at the girl's ragged appearance. My lord, child, you look like you haven't had a proper meal in months. She'll have the spare bedroom upstairs, Catherine decided immediately. Come along, dear, let's get you cleaned up and fed. Inside, Catherine bustled around the kitchen, heating water and pulling food from the pantry. As Emma ate slowly at first, Then with increasing hunger, Catherine chatted about the house and ranch. When Emma finished eating, Catherine led her upstairs to a simply furnished but comfortable bedroom with a window overlooking the ranch grounds. "This will be your room," Catherine said, smoothing the quilt. "I'll bring proper clothes tomorrow." "Thank you," Emma said. "I'm not used to such kindness." Catherine's face crumpled momentarily. "Every child deserves kindness, dear." The weeks fell into rhythm. Emma proved everything the auctioneer had promised and more. She was up before dawn helping Catherine with breakfast, tended the vegetable garden skillfully, mended clothes, and helped with animals. Her effect on Catherine was remarkable. William's wife, who had grown withdrawn over years of failed pregnancies, seemed to come alive again. She spent hours teaching Emma to cook, arrange flowers, and read in the evenings. "She's a bright girl," Catherine told William one evening. "She learns everything so quickly." "Maybe too quickly," William replied, watching Emma help a ranch hand doctor a lame horse. "Sometimes I get the feeling she's older than her years." One October evening, William found Emma in the barn loft, staring at the darkening sky. "Penny for your thoughts," he said, climbing up. "I was thinking about my parents. They had dreams. Pa wanted his own farm, Ma wanted to learn piano." She was quiet. "I wonder if I'll ever have dreams like that." "What kind of dreams would you have?" She considered seriously. "I'd like to learn to read better real books. And learn arithmetic that helps you figure important things." "What kind of important things?" "Like how much cattle a ranch can support. How to tell if you're making money or losing it. How to plan for bad years." She looked at him directly. "How to make sure you never have to sell your children." The words hit him like a physical blow. This 14-year-old had grasped that knowledge was power. "I could teach you," he found himself saying. Her eyes lit up. "You would." And so began Emma's education. After evening chores, she joined William in his study, learning to read his books and work with numbers. She absorbed everything with remarkable hunger. The first real test came in November during a 3-day storm. Ranch hands worked around the clock while Catherine and Emma kept hot food flowing. On the second night, one of the newer hands, Jake Winters, cornered Emma in the kitchen while Catherine was upstairs and William in the barn. "You're growing up real pretty," Jake said, moving too close. "Bet you're lonely sometimes." Emma stepped back, but Jake followed. "Come on, don't be shy." "I think you should go back to the bunkhouse," Emma said quietly. "Not until I get what I came for," Jake replied, reaching for her. He never saw the cast-iron skillet coming. Emma's swing caught him square in the temple, dropping him like a sack of grain. "I said go back to the bunkhouse," Emma repeated, still holding the skillet. Jake struggled up, blood trickling from his forehead. "You little hellcat. Could have killed you. Didn't. Won't be so careful next time." William's voice cut through the tension. "What's going on here?" Taking in the scene, William's face went cold. "Pack your gear, Jake. You're off this ranch tonight." "But Mr. Harrison, it's storming. Should have thought of that before bothering a child under my protection." William's hand rested on his gun. 10 minutes. After Jake left, William turned to Emma. "You all right?" She nodded, setting down the skillet. "Sorry about the trouble. You defended yourself and showed more restraint than I would have. Where did you learn to handle yourself like that?" "Living on the streets teaches you things," she said simply. That night, Catherine came to William's study. "We need to talk about Emma. We can't keep pretending she's just a hired girl. She's becoming the daughter we never had." William understood his wife's desperation but was troubled. "What are you suggesting?" "We could adopt her, William. Give her a real home, a real family. She'd inherit the ranch someday. We should ask Emma what she wants." 2 days later, while Emma helped William with ranch books, she looked up from her ledger. "Mr. Harrison, Mrs. Harrison wants to adopt me, doesn't she?" William's pen froze. "What makes you say that?" "Little things. How she talks about the future. The clothes she's buying me. How she introduces me in town." Emma closed the ledger carefully. "She's kind, and I'm grateful. But I need you to know something." "What's that?" I wasn't entirely truthful about my circumstances when you bought me. She met his eyes. My parents did die of fever, but I wasn't just living rough afterward. I was working for a man named Garrett Mills in Galveston. William's blood went cold. He'd heard of Mills, a man who controlled most illegal activities in the port city. What kind of work? He asked. Nothing like you're thinking. I was too young for that. But I kept his books, carried messages, watched for trouble. I was good with numbers and could move around without attracting attention. Why tell me this? Because Mrs. Harrison deserves to know what kind of person she wants to adopt. And because Emma hesitated. Someone's been watching the ranch. William's hand moved toward his gun. What do you mean? Yesterday I saw sunlight reflecting off something in the eastern hills like a spyglass. 2 days ago, I found horse tracks by the creek that don't match your horses. You think Mills sent someone? Maybe. I learned to pay attention when things don't feel right. That evening, William called his foreman Frank Bradley. Set up a watch rotation. Someone's been scouting the ranch. He told Catherine about his conversation with Emma. Despite her desperate desire for a child, Catherine's first concern was Emma's welfare. That child has been through enough. If trouble's coming, we'll face it together. The attack came 3 nights later, just before dawn. Emma heard the horses first, slipping from bed to see 6 men riding hard toward the ranch house. She pounded on William and Catherine's door. Mr. Harrison. Riders coming fast. William was up instantly, grabbing his rifle. How many? 6 that I could see. The attack began with Jake's shout, Harrison, send out the girl and nobody gets hurt. You're trespassing on my land. William called back. This ain't about you. The girl stole something that belongs to my employer. Emma felt a chill. She had taken something from Mills, a small ledger containing records of his payments to city officials. She'd thought of it as insurance, but Mills wanted it back badly enough to send men across half of Texas. The battle was fierce but brief. Finally, Jake called for a parley under a white flag. Send out the girl and we'll ride away, Jake demanded. Emma stepped onto the porch with her shotgun. What does Mills really want? You know what he wants. That little book you took. Emma was quiet, thinking. The ledger was hidden in her bedroom, sewn into her old dress lining. All right, she said finally. But I want something in return. I give you the book, you ride away and never come back. And you tell Mills I'm dead, killed in the attack. The negotiation took 10 minutes, but Jake agreed. Emma retrieved the ledger and cut a strip from her old dress, staining it with blood from her hand. As Jake prepared to leave, he looked back with regret. You could have had an easy life in the city. Why choose this? Emma looked around at the ranch, at William standing protectively beside her, at Catherine watching from the window. Because this is home. In spring 1892, Emma Harrison stood on the front porch, watching a wagon approach. She was 19 now, a striking young woman with confidence that came from knowing her place in the world. The wagon carried 3 new children from the city. Victims of circumstance like she had been. More strays? William asked, joining her. Emma nodded. Over 5 years, they had taken in 15 children. Some stayed and became family, others moved on to establish their own lives. All left with skills and education that gave them real opportunities. The ranch had prospered too. Emma's insights had increased profits by 30%, and she'd established relationships with buyers in Kansas City and Chicago. Catherine appeared in the doorway. At 43, she looked younger than 5 years ago despite grey in her hair. Having children to care for had given her purpose. Are they hungry? Catherine asked, always her first question about new arrivals. As the wagon pulled up, Emma greeted the new children with the same calculating look she remembered having at their age. Right now I want you to come inside and get something to eat, she told them. After that, we'll talk about what happens next. They had created something that would outlast them all. A place where broken children could become whole, where dreams could take root and grow into legacies that would change the world. The first real test came in November when a late-season storm brought 3 days of freezing rain and wind. The ranch hands worked around the clock to bring the cattle to shelter and secure the buildings, while Catherine and Emma kept hot food and coffee flowing. On the second night, one of the newer hands, a young man named Jake Winters, cornered Emma in the kitchen while Catherine was upstairs and William was in the barn. "You're growing up real pretty," Jake said, moving closer than was proper. "Bet you're lonely sometimes, stuck out here with just old folks for company." Emma stepped back, but Jake followed. "Come on now, don't be shy. I could show you some fun." "I think you should go back to the bunkhouse," Emma said quietly. "Not until I get what I came for," Jake replied, reaching for her. He never saw the cast-iron skillet coming. Emma's swing caught him square in the temple, dropping him to the kitchen floor like a sack of grain. He wasn't unconscious, but he was definitely seeing stars. "I said go back to the bunkhouse," Emma repeated, still holding the skillet. Jake struggled to his feet, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. "You little hellcat. You could have killed me. Could have. Didn't. Won't be so careful next time." William's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "What's going on here?" He stood in the kitchen doorway, taking in the scene, Jake holding his bleeding head, Emma with the skillet, the determination in her eyes. Jake started to bluster. "Mr. Harrison, this girl attacked me. I was just dash." "I know exactly what you were doing," William said coldly. "Pack your gear. You're off this ranch tonight." "But Mr. Harrison, it's storming out there. Should have thought of that before you decided to bother a child under my protection." William's hand rested on the gun at his hip. "You've got 10 minutes to clear out, or I'll drag you out myself." Jake looked from William to Emma, saw no mercy in either face, and stumbled toward the door. "This ain't over," he muttered. "Yes, it is," William replied. After Jake had gone, William turned to Emma. "You all right?" She nodded, setting down the skillet. "I'm sorry about the trouble. You have nothing to apologize for. You defended yourself, and you showed more restraint than I would have." He studied her face. "Where did you learn to handle yourself like that?" "Living on the streets teaches you things," she said simply. Catherine appeared in the doorway, drawn by the commotion. When she heard what had happened, her face went pale with fury. "That animal," she said. "Thank God you're safe, Emma." But William noticed how Catherine's hands shook as she fussed over the girl, and how her eyes kept darting to the windows as if expecting more threats to appear. That night, after Emma had gone to bed, Catherine came to William's study where he was working on the ranch accounts. "We need to talk," she said. William looked up from his ledgers. "About what happened tonight?" "About Emma." Catherine sat down heavily in the chair across from his desk. "William, we can't keep pretending she's just a hired girl." "What do you mean?" "Look at her, really look at her. She's turning into a beautiful young woman, and we're two childless people who've grown far too attached." Catherine's voice broke slightly. "What happens when she decides to leave? What happens when some young man comes courting?" William set down his pen. He'd been trying not to think about these very questions. "She's only been here a few months, Catherine. And in those few months, she's become the daughter we never had. Don't tell me you don't see it too." William was quiet for a long moment. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we make it official. We could adopt her, William. She's not an orphan. She was sold into labor." "By who?" "The county. She has no family left, and she's clearly happy here." Catherine leaned forward. "William, this could be our chance, the chance we've prayed for all these years." William understood his wife's desperation, but something about the idea troubled him. "We should ask Emma what she wants." "Of course. But think about it, she'd have a real home, a real family. She'd inherit the ranch someday. Isn't that better than whatever uncertain future awaits her otherwise?" That night, William lay awake thinking about Catherine's words. He'd grown fond of Emma, there was no denying it. She was bright, capable, and showed more understanding of ranch operations than any of his hired hands. But was Catherine's plan fair to the girl? The answer came sooner than expected. 2 days later, while Emma was helping William with the ranch books, she suddenly looked up from the ledger she was studying. "Mr. Harrison, can I ask you something?" "Of course." Mrs. Harrison wants to adopt me, doesn't she? William's pen froze over the page. What makes you say that? Little things. The way she talks about the future. The clothes she's been buying me. How she introduces me to people in town. Emma closed the ledger carefully. She's a kind woman, and I'm grateful for everything you've both done. But I need you to know something. What's that? Emma was quiet for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. I wasn't entirely truthful about my circumstances when you bought me. William set down his pen. Go on. My parents did die of fever, that part was true. But I wasn't just living rough on the streets afterward. She met his eyes. I was working for a man named Garrett Mills. He ran certain kinds of businesses in Galveston. William's blood went cold. He'd heard of Mills, a man who controlled most of the illegal activities in the port city. What kind of work? He asked, though he dreaded the answer. Nothing. Because Mrs. Harrison deserves to know what kind of person she wants to adopt. And because Emma hesitated. Because I think someone's been watching the ranch. William's hand instinctively moved toward his gun. What do you mean? Yesterday when I was working in the garden, I saw sunlight reflecting off something in the hills to the east, like someone was using a spyglass. And 2 days ago, I found horse tracks near the creek that don't match any of your horses. You think Mills sent someone after you? Maybe. Or maybe it's someone else entirely. But I learned a long time ago to pay attention when things don't feel right. William stood up and walked to the window, scanning the hills Emma had mentioned. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I hoped I was wrong. And because I was afraid you'd send me away if you knew the truth about my past. William turned back to her. Emma, what you did to survive doesn't define who you are. But this Mills character. Is he likely to come after you? I don't know. I never stole from him, never betrayed him. But he doesn't like loose ends. That evening, William called his foreman, Frank Bradley, into his study. Frank had been with the ranch for 10 years and was one of the few men William trusted completely. I need you to set up a watch rotation, William said. Someone's been scouting the ranch. Frank's weathered face grew serious. You think we're going to have trouble? I think we need to be prepared for it. As Frank left to organize the men, William found Catherine in the kitchen preparing supper. He told her about his conversation with Emma, watching his wife's face carefully as he spoke. Catherine listened in silence, her hands never pausing in their work. When he finished, she set down her wooden spoon and turned to face him. Does this change how you feel about her? She asked. No. If anything, it makes me respect her more. She survived things that would have broken most adults. Then it doesn't change how I feel either. Catherine's voice was firm. That child has been through enough. If trouble's coming, we'll face it together. William felt a surge of love for his wife. Despite her desperate desire for a child, Catherine's first concern was Emma's welfare. There's something else, he said. I don't think we should push the adoption idea right now. Emma needs to know she has choices, not feel like she's being passed from one owner to another. Catherine's face fell slightly, but she nodded. You're right. But William, I need you to know that girl has brought something back to life in me that I thought was dead forever. I know. She's done the same for me. The attack came 3 nights later, just before dawn. Emma, who had taken to sleeping lightly, heard the horses before anyone else. She slipped from her bed and peered out her window to see 6 men riding hard toward the ranch house. She ran to William and Catherine's room, pounding on the door. Mr. Harrison. Riders coming fast. William was up instantly, grabbing his rifle from beside the bed. How many? 6 that I could see. Catherine was already pulling on her robe. Is it Mills? I don't know, but we need to get ready. William sent Catherine to wake the ranch hands while he and Emma took positions at the front windows. In the grey pre-dawn light, they could see the riders spreading out to surround the house. Emma, William said quietly, there's a shotgun in the kitchen pantry. You know how to use one? Yes, sir. Good. Watch the back door. As Emma moved to the kitchen, she caught sight of the lead rider's face in the growing light. Her stomach clenched with recognition. It was Jake Winters, the hand William had fired. And behind him rode several men she recognized from her time in Galveston. The attack began with a shout from Jake, "Harrison, send out the girl and nobody gets hurt." William's voice rang out from the front window. "You're trespassing on my land. Clear out while you still can. This ain't about you, old man. It's about the girl. She stole something that belongs to my employer." Emma felt a chill of fear. She had taken something from Mills before she left Galveston, a small ledger that contained records of his payments to various city officials. She'd thought of it as insurance, something to keep her safe if Mills ever came after her. But apparently, he wanted it back badly enough to send men across half of Texas. The first shots came from the east side of the house, where two of Mills's men were trying to force their way into the barn. Frank Bradley and another ranch hand returned fire from the barn loft, and the attackers fell back. Emma heard glass breaking in the front room and knew someone was trying to get in through a window. She left her position at the back door and crept toward the sound, shotgun ready. She found one of Mills's men halfway through the parlor window, struggling to get his legs inside. Emma didn't hesitate, she fired once, and the man tumbled back outside with a scream. "Emma." Catherine's voice came from upstairs. "Are you all right?" "Fine," Emma called back, reloading the shotgun. The battle continued for what felt like hours but was probably only 20 minutes. William and his men had the advantage of defensive positions, but Mills's men were well armed and determined. Finally, Jake's voice cut through the gunfire. "Harrison, I'm coming in under a white flag. I want to talk." William considered for a moment, then called back, "Come ahead, but keep your hands where I can see them." Jake approached the front porch with his hands raised, though Emma noticed he was careful to stay behind cover. "Harrison, this is simple. Send out the girl and we'll ride away. What makes you think I'd turn over a child to scum like you? Because if you don't, we'll burn you out. We've got the numbers and the firepower." William was about to respond when Emma stepped onto the porch, her shotgun cradled in her arms. "Jake." The young man's face twisted with anger and desire. "There you are, pretty girl. You caused me a lot of trouble." "You caused your own trouble." Emma's voice was steady. "What does Mills really want?" "You know what he wants. That little book you took when you ran off." William looked at Emma in surprise, but she kept her eyes on Jake. "And if I give it to him? Then you're free to go. Mills doesn't want you, he's got plenty of girls. He just wants his property back." Emma was quiet for a long moment, thinking. The ledger was hidden in her bedroom, sewn into the lining of her old dress, the one she'd been wearing when William bought her. She'd kept it as insurance, but now it seemed like it might be the key to everyone's safety. "All right," she said finally. "But I want something in return." Jake grinned. "You ain't in a position to bargain, girl. Aren't I?" Emma gestured around the ranch. "You're outnumbered and surrounded. Mr. Harrison's men are good shots, and they know this land better than you do. You might take us down, but it'll cost you." William stepped up beside her. "The girl's right. You want to start a war over a book." Jake's confidence wavered slightly. "What do you want?" "A guarantee," Emma said. "I give you the book, you and your men ride away and never come back. And you tell Mills that I'm dead, killed in the attack. That way he has no reason to send anyone else after me." "And what makes you think Mills will believe that?" Emma smiled grimly. "Because you're going to bring him a piece of my dress with blood on it as proof." The negotiation took another 10 minutes, but eventually Jake agreed. Emma went upstairs and retrieved the ledger from its hiding place, then cut a strip of fabric from her old dress and stained it with blood from a cut on her hand. As Jake and his men prepared to leave, he looked back at Emma with a mixture of anger and regret. "You could have had an easy life in the city, girl. Why'd you choose this?" Emma looked around at the ranch, at William standing protectively beside her, at Catherine watching from the window, at the ranch hands who had risked their lives to defend her. "Because this is home." In the weeks that followed the attack, life on the ranch settled into a new rhythm. William hired additional security and had Frank Bradley teach all the household members, including Catherine and Emma, advanced shooting techniques. But more importantly, the crisis had clarified something for all of them. One evening in December, As they sat around the fireplace after supper, Catherine broached the subject that had been on all their minds. "Emma, dear, we need to discuss your future." Emma looked up from the book she was reading, one of William's treatises on cattle breeding. "What about it?" "Well, you're not a child anymore, and you're certainly not a servant." Catherine exchanged a look with William. "We were wondering how you'd feel about becoming a true member of this family." "You mean adoption?" "If that's what you want," William said. "But we want you to understand what that would mean. You'd inherit the ranch someday. You'd have a say in how it's run. But you'd also have responsibilities to the land, to the people who work it, to the community." Emma closed her book and considered their words. Over the past few months, she'd learned more about running a ranch than she'd ever expected. William had taught her to read market reports, calculate feed costs, and plan for seasonal changes. She'd discovered she had a gift for managing both livestock and people. "Can I ask you something?" she said finally. "Of course. Why did you really buy me that day in Galveston?" William was quiet for a moment. "Honestly, I saw something in your eyes that reminded me of myself at that age, a determination to survive no matter what. I respected that. And I saw a child who deserved better than what life had given her," Catherine added. "I wanted to help." Emma nodded slowly. "Then yes, I'd like to be adopted. But I want to earn my place here, not just be given it." "What do you mean?" William asked. "I want to learn everything about running this ranch. I want to prove I can make it profitable and keep it growing. And I want to help other children like I was, kids who need a chance." Catherine's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, my dear girl. There's something else," Emma continued. "I've been thinking about what happened with Mills's men. There are probably other children trapped in situations like I was. Maybe we could do something about that." William leaned forward, intrigued. "What did you have in mind? What if we started small, maybe taking in 1 or 2 children a year who need homes? We could teach them useful skills, give them education, help them build better lives." "That's a wonderful idea," Catherine said immediately. "We have plenty of room, and Lord knows we could use more help." William was more cautious. "It would be expensive, and we'd need to be careful about who we take in." "I could help with that," Emma said. "I know how to spot children who are worth saving and how to avoid the ones who might cause trouble." They talked late into the night, planning and dreaming. By the time they went to bed, they had outlined a vision that would make the Harrison Ranch not just a cattle operation, but a place of refuge and opportunity. In the spring of 1892, Emma Harrison stood on the front porch of the ranch house, watching a wagon approach from town. She was 19 now, a striking young woman with the confidence that came from knowing her place in the world. The wagon was driven by Frank Bradley, and beside him sat a thin boy of about 12 with suspicious eyes and clothes that had seen better days. In the back of the wagon were 2 other children, a girl of 8 and another boy who couldn't have been more than 10. "More strays from the city?" William asked, joining Emma on the porch. "The Children's Aid Society sent word they were coming," Emma replied. "The boy's name is Marcus, his parents died in a factory fire. The girl is Anna, her mother abandoned her at a church. And the little one is Billy, he was living on the streets." William nodded. Over the past 5 years, they had taken in 15 children. Some had stayed and become part of the ranch family, others had moved on to establish their own lives. But all had left with skills and education that gave them real opportunities. The ranch had prospered too. Emma's insights into cattle management and her careful attention to finances had increased their profits by 30%. She'd also established relationships with buyers in Kansas City and Chicago that gave them better prices for their beef. Catherine appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on her apron. At 43, she looked younger than she had 5 years ago, despite the gray in her hair. Having children to care for, even temporarily, had given her a purpose that years of failed pregnancies had never provided. "Are they hungry?" she asked, which was always her first question about new arrivals. "Most likely," Emma replied. "Frank said they've been traveling for 3 days." As the wagon pulled up, Emma walked down to greet the new arrivals. The boy Marcus looked at her with the same calculating expression she remembered having at his age. "You're Emma Harrison?" he asked. I am. And you're Marcus Thompson. Maybe. Depends on what you want from me. Emma smiled. Right now I want you to come inside and get something to eat. After that, we'll talk about what happens next. And if I don't want to stay, then you don't stay. But before you decide, let me show you something. She led him to the barn, where several of the older children who had become permanent residents were working with the horses. One of them, a young man of 18 named David, looked up from the horse he was shoeing. New arrivals, he asked. Marcus, Anna, and Billy, Emma replied. David, why don't you tell Marcus about your first week here? David grinned. I spent most of it planning ways to run off. Figured these folks were just another kind of trap. What changed your mind? Marcus asked. They kept their word about everything. Said I could leave anytime, and they meant it. Said they'd teach me useful skills, and they did. Said they'd treat me fair, and they have. David returned to his work on the horse's hoof. Been here 4 years now. Next month I'm starting my own blacksmithing business in town. Marcus looked around the barn, taking in the well-maintained equipment and healthy animals. And they don't make you do anything improper? Never, David said firmly. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison are good people. So is Emma. They saved my life. That evening, after the new children had been fed and settled into the bunkhouse where the temporary residents lived, Emma sat in William's study working on the ranch accounts. He looked up from his correspondence. You realize what we've built here, don't you? He said. A cattle ranch. More than that. We've created something that will outlast all of us. These children we've helped, they'll go on to help others.